Okay, let's listen to Len Manriquez. Len was actually born in Bacolod, is based in Cebu, but works actively with Tacloban-based journalists. So she's yours, Visayan journalist. Len will speak to us about empowering journalists who cover disasters. She will tell us about the experiences of the local journalists here, and we are all eager to hear about these stories. So let's all please welcome Len Manriquez.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Rappler for giving me an opportunity to share with you the work that we do here in Tacloban, and also in response to the disaster brought by Haiyan and the role of journalism in the context of disaster. I would also like to thank the panels who have already spoken earlier, because I learned a lot from you, and I feel that this presentation will somehow show you how it is done here in Tacloban. Oh, yeah. So, this antenna that you see on top of a water tank is actually a bamboo pole, and to it attached is a radio antenna, which is broadcasting across Tacloban in January to May 2014 in response to the communications need of the affected community here in Leyte. It is only 600 watts, so the signal is quite limited. It's low power, but it was able to reach a substantial number of communities affected by the typhoon. This antenna broadcasts Radyo Abante. I don't know if some of you knows about it now, because the other stations are already getting stronger and we need a stronger transmitter than 600 watts. But we're still broadcasting, and has expanded to a newspaper and a video screening where we go to communities and show short films about the community. So we go to the community, take videos of them, come back to them and show the same video to them that was taken like 2 weeks ago. Okay. Sorry, should be there. Doesn't work. Baliktad. Okay, so the slide somehow changed shape because of the dimension of the screen. So I want to tell you a little bit about my organization. It's called PECOJON, the Peace and Conflict Journalism Network Philippines. It's actually an international network. It has members in Indonesia, in Myanmar, in Cambodia, and this network is using the tools and techniques of conflict analysis in writing or producing stories that are of quality. So for quality journalism, we use these conflict analysis tools that will be helpful for us in developing stories that are useful for the communities. So what's the impact of Typhoon Yolanda to the media in Tacloban? I would like to show you some pictures. This is DYVL in Real Street. Some of you may have seen it going up here in Leyte Park. This was taken in November 2013. Like in November 2016 that time. This is DYBR, which is located along Magallanes Street. I don't know if any of you know the station. You know the station. It's still looking like that until now. This is Radyo Diwa, which is located along San Jose. Going to the airport, for those coming from the airport, you might have seen this building with a broken tower. Most of our journalists, radio broadcasters in Radyo Abante come from Radyo Diwa. So during the time in November until early January, not many, but all of the community media in Tacloban were heavily affected by the typhoon. The transmitters were destroyed, the printing press were destroyed, the offices and stations were all destroyed. So as you know already from the news, it's not functioning. So the media actually gathered themselves in the grandstand where also the humanitarian agencies coordinate. And there they put up this large plyboard, and then they pasted all their masthead of their newspapers, and then they just try to put any information they gather from the community in during that time. So they try their best because journalists really, they're committed to communicate information to the communities. They're committed to do their job as journalists. So even if they lose everything, they do many indigenous ways of gathering information, keeping communities informed. So why do we need to respond to the local media? The media plays a key role in disaster preparedness and humanitarian response. So the information, like all of our other speakers have shared before, the information that the media gathers from the communities and the information that the media gathers from agencies and government officials are very crucial for the people affected by the disaster. The people need life-sustaining and life-saving information. They need to know where the next relief will be distributed. They need to know where they could go when they're looking for family members. So nobody else can give that to the community, but the community of communicators who know the language, who know the political situation in the area, who know these things. So it is very important to respond to the local media. Before I go on to the other reasons why responding is important, I would like to show you a video that is produced by the CDAC network. That's the Communicating with Disaster Affected Communities Network, where Pecojon is a member of. And the reason why communication is also aid in disasters.
Communication. It's talking to a neighbor. It's emailing friends. It's catching up with the news. We all depend on giving and receiving information to share our experiences and feelings, steer our lives, and join us to our communities. In the eye of a crisis, whether it's natural or man-made, the communication networks that support every community can shatter along with resources and lives. And when all we rely on is turned upside down, we need information more than ever. It's as crucial as food, water, shelter, and medicine. Where can we go for help? What danger should we be aware of? How can we find our missing families and friends? And who will listen to our concerns and give us the advice we need? Insufficient or even conflicting information can cause confusion and worsen the feeling of isolation. And if we don't know and trust the sources, even the most vital messages can miss their mark. Lives can be saved with accurate, timely, and well-targeted information. When our voices are heard and we know what to expect, we can start to make our own decisions and get back in control of our lives. And once we can rebuild our familiar communication networks and then reconnect with the wider world, the process of recovery can really accelerate. The right information at the right time, through the right channels, can save families, livelihoods, and lives. It can give people back their futures. Communication is aid.
Okay, so why do we need to respond to the local media? One, because to effectively communicate with disaster-affected communities. So when we say effectively, it means that we know the language, we know the culture, we know the local situation, we know how to get to one place to the other, we know who the mayor is. So if we are to do that effectively with the communities affected, kasi alam nyo, journalists going to Tacloban, they cover the story also for journalists, for communities outside Tacloban. So this is a different type of communications, kumbaga, or journalism, di ba? Kasi this journalists, international and let's say journalists from Manila, they come here and the stories that they produce are provided to the communities in Manila, also in Tacloban of course, but in Mindanao, in other places in the world. But the communities here in the affected area, they have different communication needs. As we all know, information at that time during November until January is very, information from the outside is very limited because there's no internet, there's no electricity, there's no television. So we need to have constant communicators, journalists on the ground who is able to communicate directly to the communities. And it is only possible if we have local journalists empowered. Unfortunately, during that time, because of the strength of the typhoon, and as you saw the pictures earlier, most of them are also affected. So the first thing to do is to respond to them, empower them, strengthen them, capacitate the local media to be able to also capacitate communities, to empower communities, to demand for their rights. So for independent information, the government also established 2 emergency radio stations at that time. That's interesting because they should only establish 1. So they established 2, maybe because they need to reach more audience, but they only set it up in the same location. So anyway, that's past. But the information that comes from the government, we have to admit it, that it's not independent. They communicate for what they want to communicate to the people. We need to make sure that there are independent communicators that are able to communicate information to the people that are not pro any agency or any NGOs, that would only be pro the people. So we need to strengthen that. Kasi if that goes down to the drain, what will happen to the community? What will happen to their rights? For community participation, we've been talking a lot earlier, like Maria Ressa was talking a lot about it, that democracy can only happen if there is participation. Of course, because democracy can't happen if the people are not empowered to speak their mind. And the only way that the people can actually participate is when journalists give them quality information, quality journalism. So if our journalists do not provide us with good information, how can we choose the right leaders? How can we choose if we support this program of the government if our journalists are not empowered to give us that quality information? Unfortunately, in the Philippines, across the country, over the 10 years of our work, there's a big gap between journalists from the provinces and journalists from Manila because it's better in the capital. In the provinces, journalists here would definitely agree with me that here in Tacloban, one story is only 75 pesos without communications allowance, without transportation allowance, without internet, without laptop, without anything. And how can you get a good story with 75 pesos and your photo is for free? So how can we make democracy happen if we don't capacitate the communicators, the local journalists? If the communities, the public do not demand for that and do not also contribute to make that happen. For aid effectiveness, these large NGOs, they always say that they want aid to be effective. But how can we make aid effective? If we make NGOs accountable, if we make government accountable. Effectiveness can only happen if those providing aid are accountable to what they give. So we need to monitor. We need to actively participate. That's the challenge to be citizens of a democratic country. We need to actively participate. For accountability, like I said already earlier, for aid effectiveness and for accountability, they are like twins. We cannot be effective if we are not accountable. We cannot be accountable if people do not demand us to be transparent. So it's like a beautiful cycle of good governance if we all participate. So for sustainable communication, we empower local communicators, local journalists, because communication information has to be sustainable. At the end, if you've already noticed, early on in November, there were huge international agencies who were here. There's CNN. We even saw Anderson Cooper walking around Tacloban. There's CNN and BBC and all of these big names in the media. They were here. But where are they now? How do we sustain communications? How do we sustain information? How do we sustain journalism when this big media are all already gone? So for sustainable communication with the communities, we need to make sure that the local journalists are capable and are able to do that. This is the picture of the Radyo Abante team I would like to share with you. So Radyo Abante is a multimedia platform where there are about 15 journalists, local journalists. Some of them are here right now. And they've set up an emergency radio station. They've set up a newspaper, revived the newspaper, and a local cable channel to produce relevant information for the people affected by the typhoon. So the newspaper, it reaches a lot of communities. It's sent across Leyte, also up to Samar, but the radio station, it only reaches a small radius. So I'll try to share a little bit about the humanitarian world and communication. So in the UN, there are two working groups that is related to journalism. There is communicating with communities and accountability to affected population. Communicating with communities is committed to provide two-way communication between the affected community and the agencies. So the UN and all the agencies coordinating with the UN are committed to do this. Additionally, they are also committed to accountability. So meron kasi silang accountability to their donors and accountability to the people because the people have rights. Now, usually in these working groups, the ones that are attending are only communication officers of agencies. But I would like to, across the world sana, hopefully, that journalists actively participate here. Because the feedback that journalists actually gather and that will be given to these actors in humanitarian response are more, let's say, random and neutral than information that are gathered by communications officers of NGOs. Kasi sila din, like our government, they have a bias. Our NGOs, they also have a bias. Whether they say they don't have. It's a given thing. We don't need to argue on that. So, kaya lang, unfortunately, journalists, they tend to not go into these meetings because maybe it's boring. They talk things over and over again. You don't get to know anything. But I believe that the feedback that we brought up there is a good step forward to be more collaborative in providing what is good for the community. So this is Radyo Abante. I just want to share with you some points that it does. One is it's an emergency station. It's run by local media. It provides two-way communication. When we say two-way communication, people from the community can actually call, text, visit the station, and express whatever they feel of the response, what are their needs. And the agencies, because we are the media, we can actually go to them and get responses from them on the concerns of the communities. It's faster. Like early on in January, when the 10 cities were flooded, we called DSWD and IOM and told them that the 10 cities are flooded. And the journalists were able to provide mats and beds. No, not the journalists, but that reporting was able to make the government, the local government, and the NGOs act on the needs of the communities immediately at that time. So it's how effective it is. Then it's a venue for discourse. Agencies can go there and announce and discuss about their programs. Communities can right away give feedback or can right away express what they think about the program. So maybe an NGO will say, okay, we'll build houses here, and then the agencies will say, the agencies will say we'll build houses here, and the communities will say, no, we don't need these houses, so they can communicate. So I'll go faster as the minutes go shorter. This is San Juanico News. It functions the same way, but it's in the form of a newspaper. And here is one of the days where we did a public screening in bunkhouse for the TV, for the video. So this is how the Radyo Abante team participate in the humanitarian response through journalism and communications. So we gather feedback from the communities, provide it to the agencies, demand answers from them, give it back to the communities, follow up if the same problems occur in the communities until it is being resolved or has answers. 1 second. So there's a last video which I would like to show you as an end to my presentation.
November 8, 2013, a day the Philippines will always remember. The day when 300 kilometers strong Yolanda, internationally named Haiyan, smashed and crippled the Philippines. The latest sit-rep of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council records 6,268 persons dead, 28,689 injured, and 1,061 persons still missing. Haiyan brought total damage to over 555,000 households and displaced more than 4 million individuals across 648 cities and municipalities in 9 regions. Amidst the wrath and destruction of Super Typhoon Haiyan, Filipinos, as we always do, shook the burden away, gathered all remaining strength to take the long road to recovery. We Filipinos are gifted with a kind of smile that radiates deep as a positive source of strength to stand up from any situation of hardship. All through our life as a country, as a people, and a nation, we strive to fight the never-ending battle that continue to define us as a community. In situations of emergencies, we have the inherent capacity to respond and help each other. What may only be needed is to reach out to these indigenous capacities and empower communities to participate and build back better.
Thank you. I would just like to acknowledge the Radyo Abante people who came after lunch because they had to work this morning. Thank you.